This is part 2 of the fly front zipper video. I'm just picking up where I left off, where I'm about to stitch, letting my foot run along the right hand side of those teeth. And it should be a 1/2 inch from the raw edge of our pant with our shield pinned underneath. Okay, when you get to the point where the pull is going to be in the way, make sure you have your needle down, lift up your foot, and then underneath here you should be able to zip your zipper back up. So you can continue on. Just down to that notch. Stop and back stitch. Okay, from this side, we've got that 1/2 inch seam allowance with our zipper sitting in between. On the back, that stitch line should fall right on top of the one that we did previously when we were attaching our zipper to the shield. Okay. Now we are ready to go press this. Okay, take your shield and open it out so it should be sticking off the edge of the pant. We're going to press that seam that we just stitched nice and flat, so pull the shield away from the pant, press that seam flat, on the back side we need to clip our notch to release our seam just like we did on the other side. So on the backhand side, right where that notch is, just on the pants layer, I'm going to clip from my notch over to my stitch line. That will release that crotch seam so that we can use it to stitch later on. Okay, now we're ready to do an edge stitch to keep this pressed over where we just pressed it. So on this right hand side of the teeth, I'm going to do an edge stitch along that folded edge that we just pressed. Okay, so shield is sticking off the pants, and we're going to do an edge stitch right along those teeth to keep that folded and pressed down. Just down to the notch again, stop and back stitch. Okay, so that's what that is looking like right next to the teeth. Okay, now we're ready to start attaching our 2 pant legs. So we've got our left pant leg and our right pant leg with our facing attached. I'm going to lay those right sides together. These should be the same width, so the corners of your shield and facing should match up. The corners of your side seam should also match up. I'm going to pin right along this seam where the facing was attached, and we're going to baste from the top down to the notch. Okay, so this is my pinning at the moment. Go up to a 4 for the basting. And we're stitching just to the right hand side of that seam that attached the facing to the pant. Down to our notch. And then this is a base, so we don't need to back stitch at beginning or end. So that is the seam that we just did. Next thing we're going to do is permanently stitch the crotch. So this curved area below our shield and our facing. But we don't want our shield and facing to get caught in that stitch. So this little portion that isn't sewn at the bottom, I'm going to fold it back out of the way and pin it. For the shield, also for the facing. Pin that back out of the way. You can kind of do it at a diagonal so that it's fully out of the way. Because right now we're going to connect to that basting stitch that we just did and stitch this crotch permanently at a 1/2 inch. Okay, now I'm going to start right at that corner where the edge of my slit was. So this was our notch and we slit over. So right where that slit ends is where I'm going to start my seam. So I can put my needle down first. And this is permanent, so make sure you're at a 2.5 and that you back stitch at the beginning and end. After that, you're just following along 1/2 inch away from the raw edge of the fabric here. If this was a full pant, meaning we had our front and back and it wasn't just a sample, I would already have my inseams sewn at this point. So I would have a full crotch shape to sew. So instead of just having a partial U from the crotch to, or from the zipper down to the center of our crotch, I would have a full U shape going all the way up the back of the pant. So all of that stitch would be in one. We wouldn't just stop at our inseam, we would stop at the back waist on the other side. Now I can unpin those little portions that we pinned back, so my little facing corner and shield corner. Unpin those and let them come down. Next we're going to open this up. Pant legs are open. My fly and shield are both sticking off towards my right pant leg. I'm going to press this center seam nice and flat from the waistline down to that, just past that notch. And then we're going to mark in our J-stitch. So lay our pants down flat, again, opened legs with our shield and facing sticking off to this side. Press that center front seam nice and flat. And again, we want to go a little bit further past our notch when we're pressing because, excuse me, our J-stitch will extend 1/4 inch past our notch. Okay, so this is what we're looking like right now. Okay, let's go mark in our J-stitch with our chalk. Our J-stitch will be 1 1/4 inch wide, so I'm going to measure over from the waistline 1 1/4 inch and begin marking the straight part of my J-stitch. I can do this part just with a ruler. And then when I get down to the part where it's going to curve over, I'll need to take my pattern piece so that we can copy off that curved shape. Feel for your bottom stop of your zipper because you want to go just 1/4 inch past that. So make sure it's sticking down 1/4 inch past. Line up that straight edge with the chalk mark you just did. And now I can trace off my curve. So with it fully marked, this is what it's looking like. Okay, now we are going to stitch this in 2 steps. But before we do that, we need to attach our zipper to our fly facing. Right now, our zipper is only attached to our shield. So we need to make sure that that zipper gets attached to that fly facing. I'm going to close my pant legs and just let my fly facing sit on bottom and my zipper stick off. So even though those two are attached, I'm putting my zipper down and only folding back that shield. And I'm going to pin back my shield right now to keep it out of the way. And this is what it's looking like right now. I'm about to pin through the center of this zipper tape and then stitch along that side. So your zipper should be face down. You're looking at the back of the teeth right now. There we go. Okay, so I pinned the top vertically so that I can partially unzip. The other two are horizontal. Now I'm going to use that zipper pull to push down my zipper partially. And then, like I said, we're just stitching right down the center of this tape. When you get to the point where that pull will be in the way, stop with your needle down. And then this one will be a little bit more challenging to zip back up. I usually use my thumb to push up the back of that pull to the point where it gets past the foot, and then you should be able to grab the pull and finish pulling it up. Okay, now I can just finish going down to the bottom, stop. And back stitch. Okay, this one's a little bit difficult to see on camera with the dark colors, but I've got that stitch going down the center of the tape. Okay, now I can unfold my shield, and we're ready to do that two-step J-stitch. So open it back up, allow your shield and facing to come over to one side where the J-stitch is. And now for this top part, we only want it to go through the facing and the right pant leg. So again, fold that shield back out of the way. So this time we've got shield and facing separated on opposite sides with pant legs open. From the front, I'm going to pin along the straight side of my J-stitch, and we'll stop before we get to where it curves. Okay, now I'm going to follow my chalk line and stitch just the straight side. Before it starts to curve, I'm going to stop and back stitch. Okay, I'm getting to the curved part, so stop, back stitch. Okay, for that curved part of the J, we want the shield to get caught in that stitch. So unpin your shield. Fold over your shield, let it come over to the same side as the facing. And now you can pin that curved area. Start right where you back stitched. So I'm going to back stitch right over my previous back stitch. And then follow my curved chalk line over to my center seam, but not past. So now we have that full J-stitch shape stitched into the front of our pant. Okay, now I can take the basting out on that center seam, and we should have an operating zipper. Be very careful not to cut your pant fabric. If you did, you would put a hole in it, and at this point you would have to recut your pant and start over with the front of your pant. Clean up those excess threads. And now, when we open our zippers, we have our little flap that covers up our zipper. And when we open it up, our fly and shield should separate. So they will separate down to the point where we started the curve of that J. At the curved part, they will not separate. Okay? Okay, so that is the fly front zipper sample.